Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the 107 Podcast with myself, Jacob, and Ash is nowhere to be seen. He is currently, as far as I'm aware, somewhere over the... Terry, what's the ocean between the America and the England?
I want to say Atlantic.
He's somewhere on a plane.
Say that.
So, of course, I brought in the expertise in Terry, who, if you haven't listened to the podcast before, has been on previous episodes. But if you don't have no idea who Terry is, please go check him out on TikTok. I think you've got like 20,000 followers or something on TikTok, so you must be doing something right over there. But Terry is absolutely fantastic and knowledgeable, and also is 9 times out of 10 the first person I ever hear F1 news from. So please do go check him out. But we're here to talk about the somewhat not really anymore, but kind of breaking news and a few of the rumors and bits and pieces around the Haas team. And obviously, Guenther Steiner, everyone's favorite Italian American, I'm going to go with that, has left. I was shocked-ish. What about you, Terry? How did you take the news?
I was shocked. I mean, I obviously saw the tweet that you guys have put out. About the changes happening at Haas. So that kind of got me looking around and kind of sniffing around Haas news. And then I saw a couple of the rumours starting to break on, that Guenther had been removed from the team part on the website. And I did a bit more digging, and you went to buy any of his merch, and suddenly it came up with the dreaded 404 not found page. And I was like, ooh, could this be right? Then I saw, and then I was going to do a video. Obviously, I've seen a few rumours online, people, speculate on it.
Yeah.
And then I had a message to say that Haas were going to make a statement at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And then after a bit of Googling, realised that was 5 p.m. UK time. And then thought, you know what, it's getting near 4 o'clock now. There's no point making one. I might as well hold off now and actually get an official statement from it. So about then, it kind of, with all the rumours, everything going on, and then a statement due. Yeah, that's never a good sign, is it? Let's be honest about it. So,
it's
a shock, definitely, in terms of the change of direction of Haas. That's for sure. It certainly wasn't on my bingo card for this year, let's put it that way.
No, we should do bingo cards, by the way, because that sounds like a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I've got a journal.
Let's do it. Okay.
It'll brilliant. I need to fill that in, and we need to really do it then this year.
Let's actually do that, because that sounds really stupid.
Let's have a 107 podcast bingo card.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect.
So it's not only Guenther leaving, we also have Haas technical director Simone Resta leaving. So it's not only one position, but also like in terms of just general team direction, but also technical direction. And the way that it's come about, there's no comment from Guenther. Apparently, Guenther wasn't allowed to say goodbye to staff. So
that's all right.
That sounds bad. Like, that does sound bad. So, and Guenther still hasn't made a public statement yet, which is also very odd. So something tells me that there's been very clearly frustrations have boiled over, and I believe that Gene has made a decision which he will live to regret. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen and what I've gathered, it seems like Guenther was out of contract, which is kind of key to everything. So I don't know whether he had a rolling contract, whether it was the end of a multi-year contract. It sounds like this might be something that him and Gene Haas quite regularly did, sit down at the end of the season, sign a new contract, carry on.
Yep.
And it looks like this time it's just gone south for whatever reason. We're hearing that Guenther allegedly wanted more financial backing from Gene Haas. Gene Haas is saying, no, you've got what you need with the technical partnership with Ferrari, you've got what you need with the budget you've got, and you should have got better than 10th out of it. And you've got all the tools available to you to do that. Now, that looks like it's had a knock-on, like I say, all the way down with the technical director going as well, in the sense of, that movement, which kind of feels like that backs up that theory, if I'm honest. And the way the statement of Gene talks all about, I'm hoping it's more an engineer-based focus going forward, kind of makes me think that's definitely the underlying current to this, that the car's not in a position they want it to be after the back of the wind tunnel, on the back of, the CFD designs.
Yeah.
That's what it's feeling like.
I think that on a slight tangent, there was a tweet, which I don't know how accurate it was, but it said the amount of hours that each team will have available in the wind tunnel over this season, right? Or at the very least until it's updated. And in my head, I was like, that is a shocking amount. Like, I'd never really heard a number. Like, I just assumed, like, it'd be like 200 hours as like first, and then like 300-400 at bottom. But it's like double that at least. And I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, I had no idea. This is me potentially being a little bit naive as well. But in Gene's defense, he has thrown a decent amount of money at this. They have the most amount of win done all time. They brought upgrades which didn't work, which you could technically argue as an engineering on technical problem. So yeah, okay. And then applying a technical director, sorry, not a technical director, an engineering person to team principal.
Oversee it, yeah.
Okay, sure. But it doesn't exactly set great tones in terms of performance for next season unless something absolutely drastic changes, and it's almost like they need like a double diffuser type realization to not finish 10th. Essentially, that's what it is. They're looking for something which, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't exist. And I think that getting rid of Guenther is probably the wrong idea based on people within the paddock. And I think Will Buxton is a great example. He came out and made a tweet around the fact that like he was Guenther was the one holding the team together and doing quite a lot on not a lot. And the reactions and stuff like that I've seen around the paddock have been very similar. So I think that goes to say a lot, despite what, fans may be saying in terms of him not being particularly good at his job. But I think we spoke a little bit before recording. I think you echoed that a little bit, right, Terry? That was...
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think it's middle of last season when I said that they might need to change in terms of their direction and what they're doing. And that might include Guenther in that. But what I don't think the answer is purely with him in terms of the card elements and the way going forward. I don't think his change is going to be enough of what you describe him to take Haas to a different level. And that's where I see the problem going, because he was a great personality for the team. Commercially, he was great. Yeah. He was well known. He was someone who, people would instantly recognise from, Drive to Survive and all of that. They associated him with the team.
He was a main character.
Yeah, he's their identity as such. Yeah. And I know he wasn't the main man in terms of the name of the door, but if you put Gene Haas walking down the paddock, how many Formula One fans would probably recognise Gene Haas actually? Yeah, if he walked down in a t-shirt without any merch and no one sort of buy it, he would probably walk through pretty much, and sort of notice. And with the new team principal, it's not a big name signing in that promotion from within. It doesn't make a statement for me of we're going to take it to the next level. For me, someone like Otmar, someone like Benotto coming in as a replacement would have enabled you to change that direction and make that statement that says, I'm really serious about staying, in Formula One and taking the team forward. That to me would have been a bold move to say, I may have got rid of a big personality, but look what I brought in as a replacement.
It shows intent. That's what this whole situation is lacking. And you actually said something quite interesting, not only around, there needing to be a renewal of the Concord agreement, and obviously Andretti not knocking on the door of Haas at the moment, but in terms of knocking on the door, trying to get a space on the grid. Could this even potentially, I've just thought of this, not based on the conversation that we had before recording, but could it potentially be that this is actually a for sale sign in the window? Because Guenther could have essentially said, look, I want a bit more budget because I want to be able to do this. And I think that, in all honesty, Gene does seem very hands-on in a very micromanagey way. So could he have been limiting the performance of Guenther as well? But also at the same time, Gene, if you look at it from an outside looking in perspective as Gene, he's spending so much money, but the team is worth a hell of a lot. He could potentially be doing this to reduce wages, reduce costs, and, maybe Andretti does step in and takes over the team. That could potentially be it. It could just be, right, I'll put, I'm going to try and say this bloke's name correctly because Ayao Komatsu. Sorry, it's the first name. Komatsu I can say properly. I'm not completely but Komatsu obviously is the new team principal for now. But I don't know, does that seem like a for sale sign? Nothing against Komatsu. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I actually met him at the British Grand Prix. Really lovely bloke. But I don't know. Does it? It doesn't scream intent.
No, and I think that's the part. I mean, you talk about Andretti. Andretti have got, various options opening up to them. We know that they're in this negotiation with Formula One management about joining the grid. We know that that's being dragged heavily by Formula One management. It's quite clear they don't want it to happen, and it's quite clear they're pretty much doing everything they can to not let it happen. Otherwise, we would have heard an update on it. We would have heard something from the FIA, Formula One management, or Andretti. The fact we've got this complete radio silence is a surefire bet that nothing's happening, or certainly nothing of any tangible sort of news story.
We get random dribs and drabs, don't we? Like, we found out that by EU law, technically they can't decline the bid and stuff like that. Which
and then
I
that
don't
gets
know if that's true.
by the Concord Agreement, which, I must add, the majority of the Concord Agreement is completely confidential. We've only ever seen one of those that got leaked a few years back to see, what sort of content goes in it. So that leaves Andretti with the choice of walking away or buying a team, let's be honest. Now, I've said for a while, Alpine commercially would have made a great deal for Andretti. They would have got the Enstone factory as the base. They would have got an engine supply because Alpine would have carried on building engines in France, supplying them. So that would have been great for them. And they would have had their base in Europe they're looking for. But this now kind of steers the glaze to Haas, because we are probably, for someone like Haas, finishing 10th once is okay. You do it 2 or 3, you get a winning scenario where the value drops right off.
Yeah.
Like you say, is Gene Haas just going in at the top of the boom, at the top of this is as high as commercially I'm going to get for Haas? So do you know what? Like you say, I'm going to cash out now. And for Andretti, it's a surefire way in, and probably still cheaper than buying into Formula One, then setting up your facilities. Still actually saving money for him. If he's got $600 million we've heard the teams are asking for as a buy-in.
Yeah.
And then you've then got to set up your facilities on top of that.
Yeah. You're talking well over $1 billion.
Yeah.
Like within 2 or 3 years. Like, it's insane.
And you can't come in this late in the regulations. There's absolutely no point in doing that. So you're not coming in until 2026 at the earliest.
Yeah.
So you've got a year and a half, 2 years as it currently stands, no racing. That means no income.
Yeah.
So you're burning money down because you've got started, but you've also got started development for 2026 in 2025. So if Andretti haven't got an agreement by January next year, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
In terms of joining the Formula One grid. Yeah, pretty much. So the clock's ticking on them. And with all of that in mind, like you say, it could just see them ripe for a takeover. They've got offices in Maranello, North Carolina, they've got Bicester offices. It's very easy to merge that if you're someone like Andretti.
Yeah, true. I mean, you think about the sort of stuff that they have as well, like with the facilities and stuff that they have. They could even very easily, again, I am in no way an expert on this, but you could very easily sell the facilities that you have in Italy to Ferrari, to AlphaTauri, to maybe Prema, who are based in Italy. You could sell it to a lower division racing series as well, and then potentially build something better in the US or wherever it is. So there's definitely opportunity there as well to use the shell of Haas to create something like a rising phoenix almost. Or it could even be that you have a similar takeover to Audi and Sauber, whereby Audi are coming in for 2026. Everyone knows it. So maybe that's what Andretti do. They come in at 2026. They let Haas's run its course. And then as of 2026, or sort of halfway through 2025, when realistically you need to start testing parts and all that fun stuff, that's when Andretti take over. You never know. So it raises more questions than it answers.
Absolutely. And if you look at the Andretti Formula One bid, he's actually stated in there he wants a European base.
Yes.
So all of the work that's going on in the US, even though it's going to be US team, he's already said with the Formula E and with Formula One, he wants a European base just due to the logistics of Formula One and indeed Formula E to some extent.
Let's also remember as well that not only is half the season based in Europe, let's be honest, but like most of the good people that you'd want to nab from other teams are based in Europe as well. So you've got to like 50-50 meet the there's an argument of build it and they will come, but there's also an argument of build it next to where they already are and they'll come a little bit easier type thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's we've heard those stories, haven't we? We've heard that Ferrari struggling to even recruit in Italy, Maranello and stuff. So we know that there is, we know that part of AlphaTauri's reason for moving to Milton Keynes is for that. They've actually said that. Peter Bear actually said last week that the whole point of moving the area department, even from like Bicester way to Milton Keynes, is to attract better quality of people because they're all, like say, in that area. I mean, they're all based in there.
Personally, I've been to Milton Keynes. I'd rather go to Italy.
Absolutely. I mean, as someone who's been to the Red Bull factory, I'm sure, Red Bull factory looks nice, don't get me wrong, but Maranello, I'm sure, looks a lot better.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
Just off that roundabout in Milton Keynes. Nothing against Red Bull, I must add.
Yeah,
their factory looks great. And if you've been to the Mercedes factory, you'd certainly think the Red Bull factory was great, because Mercedes is definitely nowhere near on a par with that one.
It's a bit not dated, but you can tell it's
it's dated. I mean, that's why all the rebuilding's going on there.
Yeah,
it is, Brackley is dated. It still goes in through one door at the back, proper old school style. It's quite interesting to see. Considering the amount of money they've got. So yeah.
And also, let's be honest, the Aston Martin factory. I mean, like, now you've got to compete with that. That is an outrageous facility. Like,
that's just a whole new level of this,
It's phenomenal. Anyway, we're getting off topic.
Anyway,
back to Guenther.
Back to Guenther.
Whoever's listening, if you can organise a factory tour, get us in.
Absolutely.
But in terms of Guenther, like I said, I think that if there are fans out there that are not necessarily celebrating this, but thinking that this is a great move, I really do think you need to rethink. I've said the word think a lot, but I think you need to rethink your perspective on that. And I think that will show, maybe not in the first couple of races, like first 3 or 4 races, it might not show. But after that, and especially over the entire season, I just can't see it going particularly well. So I would like to defend the bloke a little bit. Like I said, it's very interesting that he hasn't made a statement. He hasn't, come out. I think he has like an appearance as part of like a panel on Saturday. Is that Saturday?
I'm there. Saturday.
Oh, you're there?
I'm there.
Oh, brilliant. You'll have to report back and see how he is. I
can't wait. Yeah, he's guest speaking at the Autosport International.
That's what it is. Yes.
Yeah, and they've confirmed last night that he's still going to be there, which is literally going to be his first appearance since then. And David Cross doing the interview, so it could get very interesting.
Yeah, I can you imagine the chat that they're going to have backstage?
Oh,
to be
honestly, it's one of those. It's one of those. I booked tickets ages ago, and I was looking forward to going anyway. Then he was announced as going, so I was like, "Oh, perfect, even better."
Brilliant.
And now it's like, "Oh, it's like perfect."
You will definitely have to let us know how that goes, because that's
definitely. I'm going to be trying to reach my phone to film it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's going to be a mob. Let's be honest. You're going to get near him on Saturday.
Yeah, that's going to be ridiculous. But I think that even though we've not talked down Komatsu, I obviously wish him the best of luck and wish Haas the best of luck. But with him coming in and not, especially this is his first team principal role. He's never been a team principal before. It's going to be very interesting to see how he actually manages to, get stuff done.
Especially when you think they've now just left 2 glaring big vacancies in their team.
Yeah.
So it's okay promoting this way, and I totally get where Gene's coming from in terms of taking it an engineering way. But if you've just lost your technical director as well as your team principal, let's be honest, and you then promoted what was, head of engineering up to team principal, that's 2 key engineering roles that you've actually not replaced, which, if you're focused on engineering, again, it sounds a little bit strange.
Yeah.
Because surely they would have been key appointments at the same time as the team principal role.
It doesn't seem like a very well thought out plan, does it?
And also, you've only got to look at McLaren's development route last year. They took that wrong turn over the winter, and they obviously took them all the way to sort of Silverstone time, really, let's be honest, before they really got back in the game. And that's with a team of, no disrespect against Haas, but McLaren's facilities, technical structure, their budget, all of those things, Haas haven't got that in their locker to call upon.
No.
And, if a team like, McLaren struggled to get it back after going down the wrong route, if Haas have gone down this wrong route, which I think they might have, because let's be honest, the only reason that that's happened is if Gene isn't happy with what he's seen over the winter, because why wait until now?
Yeah.
If he's waiting until now, that's because the first simulations are done, the car's been put through the wind tunnel, the data's on the board, and quite clearly he's looked in and gone, we're in trouble here, and I need to make some changes. And that's what it feels like, if I'm honest. It feels like the data's come through and suddenly they've all gone,
Yeah,
we've got a problem.
this is the first week back where I know that Fernando is back at Silverstone at Aston Martin. I know a lot of the drivers are now starting to come back and do sim work and stuff like that. So more than likely they've come back. The sim numbers are awful and they've gone, oh god, what have we done?
It's what it feels like, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
There's been like the emergency meeting calls and gone, right,
What the hell do we do?
Change,
We need more money, Gene. No, you can't have any. Okay, I'm leaving then. Like, no idea.
And of course, that's the thing that people have sort of not touched on. We know that they've parted ways. We know that ultimately Gene's pulled the trigger. But did he pull the trigger, or was it a case of also of Guenther going, you know what, I can't work with this, or I'm not going to anymore because I can't deliver what you want. So therefore, I am resigning my contract that might have just expired, or do you know what, I'm walking away from this as well. And that's where, until we get his opinion on this, we've got this one-sided story without any real facts on it, without whether or not, he's looking to stay in Formula One, he's looking to take a break. Those sort of things will give do with how it ended, because if he suddenly comes out bouncing saying, actually, I'm ready for another job, I'm raring to go as such.
Yeah, I mean,
very different, isn't it?
I mean, especially like if you're looking commercially, if you're another team looking commercially as well, like maybe Audi turn around to him and offer him a position in a few years, because I mean, like he could probably help flog some Audis, let's be honest, especially being a salesperson originally. But like there could be another team looking at him. I presume there's probably some sort of gardening leave.
It depends.
I don't know. Yeah, you don't know.
Well, no, I mean, I did a video on this one earlier, and it all depends whether or not he's out of contract, because he can't be on gardening leave if his contract's ended. And that's why it's key to how this relationship is ended, because if it's a contract renewal and he's not signed it, there is no gardening leave to apply. So therefore,
I guess not,
he can walk into another team straight away. He could, of course, have agreed a separation and signed an NDA and a payoff and gone on his way that way. Of course, we've seen that happen. This is Formula One.
True.
And in terms of team principles, we've got the state team principle isn't a full-blown team principle. Remember that one? Because, they made those changes when Seidel come across from McLaren, and he's not the team principal, and the team principal isn't really a team principal. He's an advisor, not really like. Do you know what I mean? You've got Alpine, still got Bruno Famin as an interim one, not been appointed full time yet. There are some options, like say, for someone commercially.
I even in an advisory type role as well. But I mean, I'd be, if I'm Guenther, unless there's an offer already from another Formula One team, or there's some sort of reason why, I'd be looking at Sky and being like, how can I help? How can I help? Like doing punditry for Sky Germany, Sky UK, wherever. Even F1 TV would probably love to have him. Like he would be perfect for broadcast. So I can't imagine that, his inbox isn't exactly empty with offers. But yeah, it will be very interesting to see what next steps he's actually going to take, because the whole of the F1 fandom will be watching.
Absolutely. And like you say, so much open to him. We know Sky have talked about a new presenter coming, haven't announced that even.
No.
Yeah, you start to look at dots and go, actually, is this actually part of this whole thing where he's already known, he's negotiated something, or he's already got something lined up. This is Formula One. Would he have known first thing this week, or has this been rumbling for a couple of weeks? These are all the unknowns, aren't they? Which
so many questions.
This Formula One world's so connected, that I certainly don't think it's the last we've seen of him at all.
No, not at all.
Not at all. And I don't think it'll be long before we see him again, if I'm honest.
No, he will be somewhere in the paddock next year. He just will. Unless he wants to go and he actually says, I want a sabbatical.
I want to take a break.
Away, which is perfectly understandable. He's been doing it for years now. But the other slightly fun fact that I found as well is that now, bearing in mind that he's barely been there 5 minutes, Mike Crack is the third longest team principal, third longest serving team principal. And he only came in like 2 years ago.
How crazy is that? I saw that and I was like, are you sure? When you have to read something twice, and you go, really?
The longest serving team principal is Christian Horner.
Christian Horner, obviously, yeah.
What? That just, it doesn't sound right, does it?
Christopher Horner and Toto.
Sound like, Christian Horner and Toto. But I mean, and then Mike Crack. I don't know. It's just very odd.
I saw that, and like I said, it's one of these tweets that you look at twice, don't you? And you go, "Are you sure you got that right?" You know, and then literally I was like, "Can they get a gas?" I looked at it and going, "Oh my, it is right." You know, it's absolutely bang on. You know,
insane, absolutely insane. But I think we've spoken about Guenther. Unless you have any other thoughts around him.
Well, I'm just waiting for the Binotto and Guenther road trip to come onto Netflix.
I'd love that.
Maybe that's what he's doing in his year off. Maybe they're going to get in that little Fiat 500 and go around the vineyards or something again. Maybe that's the next step through.
People would pay a lot of money to see that.
I would quite happily watch Guenther and Matteo road trip.
It's almost like Grand Tour, like James May, Our Man in Cycle Series as well. They're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. They just send them both to different countries.
Or get them to follow the Formula One calendar.
Yes,
so they can literally do
like Travel Man. Did you ever watch Travel Man on Channel 4? They do, but it's those two, and they go to the Grand Prix weekends and show.
We should get them in all the fan zones.
Yes, exactly,
Get F1 on the case, get them in the fan zones.
Perfect. My God, it's just like an F1 TV spin-off.
That's it. If you're watching F1, we won that one. We won tickets to that when that happens.
Or do you remember when Will Arnett and Daniel Ricciardo did like alternative commentary?
The podcast commentary.
Yes.
The Gunether alternative commentary coming to Sky soon, complete with beliefs.
Perfect.
Press the red button. But
don't press it twice, because otherwise you get Sky Kids, and I think there's there's definitely a level of Guenther swearing and Sky Kids that you don't want to mix.
Sky Kids, the
blue one for Guenther, But I think regardless, best of luck to Haas in this very odd, weird time, because it can't be fun being, for example, just a front end engineer at Haas at the moment going, what the hell is happening? So absolutely best of luck, and hopefully their sim data is not as bad as we may think.
And I hope it's not true that he didn't get a chance to say you could buy, because ultimately whatever the sort of direction of the team, they wouldn't have come about if it hadn't been for his determination. When you read his book and you read actually how he sort of not coerced him, but badgered him is probably the right word, into setting it up, and then the COVID struggles and that side of things. Then actually, Haas themselves owe a lot to Guenther Stein and whatever people's opinions of him as a team principal, maybe. So, it's only right that they've got a lot of long-serving team members there, a lot of people who've been there from the start who, deserve the opportunity to say goodbye, if nothing else, if that's not happened. So I saw that and I thought, I hope that's not true, or if it is, I hope they do get a chance to actually say goodbye in a proper way, rather than sort of through tweets and stuff that we tend to be seeing.
I mean, the funniest thing would be if Andretti took over and then they made
a team principal.
That would be just purely as a fuck you to Gene.
Just as a commercial thing. Perfect.
So good.
And then called like Guenther Racing for 2 years. Changed Andretti.
Well, it's better than steak, honestly. Actually, I didn't mention that as a talking point. But what's your opinion on the naming for this team? Because I don't understand. Like,
I understand it from a monetary point of view. I mean,
money.
When I did the video on how much they paid, what was then Alfa Romeo, I was like 33 million, bigger than like Aramco to Aston Martin. I was like, that is a huge amount of money for when you're going to change it out to kit for so many races anyway. And I get that this is commercial talking in Formula One, and these people are paying mind-blowing amounts of money, but there's identity there as well, isn't it? And to come with a name that you can't use in every country, you can't use, probably ain't going to use on Sky, let's be honest about it.
No.
Probably not going to be on the team sheets or the F1 app when it goes up. Just seems really pointless and a lack of identity. And for me, kind of sums up their journey at the moment, which is that transitional stage where Audi don't want to invest too much, because you know what, they're like, we ain't giving you all our money because we're waiting, because we want to, 1st of January 2025, that's when we're going to stick our money in, ready for 2026. So at the moment we're going to sit on our hands and sit on our wallets, and you carry on as you are for another 12 months, and then we're when we're finally ready to come and play, we will, like, that's what it feels like. This transitional stage that has been going on all of last year, going to carry on into this year, where it just doesn't feel like, again, similar to us, it feels like they don't have a direction of where they're going because they're in this identity crisis before they become Audi.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it, really. They got, 2 years before that happens? Yeah.
Bang on. You're bang on. It's understandable if it was like, for example, McLaren obviously have a reasonably large sponsor in Velo, which is a nicotine product, kind of ish. It is, but it isn't. But it is.
Yeah.
It's not cigarettes, so it's fine apparently. But so with that, they have to sometimes change the logo or the name, but it's not a title sponsor.
No.
So that's fine. I don't think it's. But I mean, will most people just? Let's be honest. Martin Brundle is just going to refer to it as the Sauber team.
Sauber. It's going to be Sauber. Sauber's going to be I mean, ironically, Sauber is because that really long name they come out with, and everyone kind of went, "What is that?" That's still on the FIA document. That is the name they submitted.
Yeah.
So this state kick F1 whatever was Sauber bolted on the end. So ultimately, we are probably going to see Kick Sauber at some point.
Yeah.
During the course, if not on all the apps and stuff.
Exactly.
Make sure you can use it all. So I think we will see the Sauber name on there, which again is really baffling to why we've now got Stake F1.
Yeah.
If we're going to get like Kick Sauber on a lot of stuff.
It's just odd.
It's just odd.
But it is a talking point, and it has got people talking, which is what.
And they've revamped, obviously, their social media. It looks a completely new strategy, to be honest. Looking at how they've launched it, looking at their fan interaction, what they're doing. Car launch in London for the first time ever. So, they have
they're flipping the script.
Used it as a change, and a talking point, which, like you say, it's got everyone talking. It's got them noticed again. And Stake will love it because everyone knows about Stake. And actually, 12 months ago, it was still the Alfa Romeo team with Stake as a sponsor on it. So, do you know what? From a marketing point of view, it's weird, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Whether or not that's translating into, actual financial success for Stake is a completely different story. But I mean, they're happy, we're happy. Whatever.
You're a Formula 1 fan, not me. Do you ever look at these branding on the cars and does it make you go and buy those products?
I have a story to tell you. I think I was accidentally influenced. I didn't realize. So I had a work phone, an iPhone. We were told you're allowed to use your iPhone as your personal phone. It doesn't matter because here in Denmark you pay tax on your phone anyway, so it's technically yours. So do what you want with it. And it is what it is. And then at some point I decided, look, I want to separate work life, have a bit of a better work-life balance. So I'm going to buy myself a phone. And I bought a Google Pixel about 2 weeks after the chrome liveried McLaren. And I think I was influenced. And I don't think I realized until about a month afterwards because I was like, oh yeah, McLaren use chrome diver. Oh no. It was literally a switch in my head. So I think I was accidentally influenced by McLaren to buy a Google Pixel.
It clearly worked then.
Apparently it works. So whoever does marketing or partner relations at McLaren, well done. You sold me a phone. But some of these partnerships do work. Am I ever going to try Velo? No. Never.
But you've heard of the brand, and that's the point.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I ever going to try OKX, which is crypto and like NFTs and all that rubbish? No, because I have brain cells. But I know what the brand is.
And likewise, I just want to ask you to name crypto, which is what all these things are about. Because I don't know if you signed up to the Aston Martin IAN competitions.
Yes, I have.
And how many times are their questionnaires always on which of these brands, which sponsors have you heard of?
Yeah,
and it goes through lists, doesn't it? Of obviously the obvious like Aramco, Cognizant, Boss, all those.
Exactly.
It actually goes through all the brands and says which of these, and it surprises how many that you suddenly go, I don't drink Bombardier beer, for example, but I know they're a sponsor of Aston Martin.
Exactly.
Peroni, I'm not a lager drinker at all, but actually
I know of them. Yeah,
I know of them. And
I think we do have to remember that there are so many different types of Formula One fans who are interested in so many different bits and pieces, and so like there are so many brands which it just makes sense. Like if, for example, I don't drink beer, but Heineken plaster their stuff all over the place. So if I were to drink beer and I was like, oh, I'm in a pub or whatever, oh, Heineken, because it's in your head.
It's
it's
recognizable. It's recognizable from the exposure, isn't it? So,
exactly. So there are some stuff which, yes, I would probably use, like. But some stuff I just don't. It depends, doesn't it? It's a weird sort of, yeah, I don't know. It depends on the item itself. But some people go mad for this stuff. Like some people will, like, obviously McLaren did the Sun God partnership.
Yeah.
People will just go mad and buy loads of Sun God sunglasses because
that's what I mean.
McLaren.
There's been some massively successful, sort of commercial crossovers, hasn't it? Which especially on merch and stuff, hasn't it? So there's a lot to be said for that.
I also thought about this as well. Obviously, whenever you buy like merchandise from McLaren or whatever. So I have a McLaren hoodie, which I was wearing earlier, right? So, and I paid like a stupid amount of money for this hoodie because I'm an idiot and I'm a sucker for marketing, apparently.
Wait for the sale, mate. Wait for the sale.
So, yeah, no, I know that's what you've done as well. But like it has, for example, Android and Dell written on this, right? But it's still going to cost me £80. Why am I paying loads of money to have Dell plastered all over me? There is an argument for that of like, well, Dell have paid money, so I'm giving them free advertising.
Yeah.
So surely I should get this for free or cheaper. Like, there's that argument to it too, which is why
I love that argument.
I mean, there is that argument to be had.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, like I every now and again, whenever I go to work or whenever I go out, right? If you were to like head to toe look at somebody at work, they may be wearing Nike shoes, Levi jeans, and a hoodie from Hollister, for example, right? You are advertising those brands for free, right? You've paid them money. So why don't you advertise something yourself? So I wear like a 107 podcast shirt sometimes because it's free advertising for yourself. Why don't you promote yourself? It's just it's completely unrelated to F1, but but my point is that like these advertisements and stuff like that, they really do get into your head and you associate those brands with those teams. So it definitely is worth it in terms of marketing money, even if you directly aren't impacted by that brand and by that product. But something to give you an example, every now and again I have energy drinks. If I'm going to have an energy drink, it's going to be a Red Bull. However, I really hope that because of the new partnership with McLaren and Monster, we get some sort of papaya monster or something like that.
Yeah.
I will spend money on that because I'm a sucker for advertising. I just am. Like, I'll give it a go. Look, Google Pixel. Like, take my money. And I know I'm not the only one, right? Surely there's something that like you've bought, even if it's like martini champagne. Surely you've bought something.
Oh, dare you ask it?
Oh no. Well, I know one. I know one that you've bought. You've bought the McLaren Technic Lego set because it's McLaren. There we go.
Technically, my wife did, but yes, that was the reason behind it. Yeah.
Well, there we go. Yeah,
absolutely. Because Formula One, and
it works.
It works. And you see some of these brands, they're just simultaneously associated with teams, aren't they? Some of the longer serve ones, your Petronases, even your Amco now with Aston Martin, you've got your Shell and your Ferrari. Some of them are so long standing, that actually you're now associating the two together in terms of the partnerships and how long they've been going, haven't you? So I've just there's a lot of money.
I only fill up my car at Shell. I've just realised what's wrong with me.
But that's what I mean. From State's point of view, they clearly, have got a good deal. They've got some great exposure from it. That's obviously going to continue. So I can see why they've done it. Audi and have obviously taken the money. I'm not quite sure what Audi's ownership is currently at with Sauber. I know they had this sort of deal where they were taking on a year-on-year increase in terms of their holding within.
Yeah.
So that by the time we get to 2026, they're going to be over 50% at least. So they'll be the controlling stake in it.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure what the latest is with where they're at with that. I'm imagining they've had to increase it again as per their condition of buying effectively Sauber out, isn't it? So
Yeah, I think if you're Audi, you would look at like, right, if we're increasing our partnership year on year, how does it make sense? Is there some sort of equipment we can upgrade? Could we maybe set money aside for a new technology that, like
Well,
we
they've
can
been
then
doing
bring in
factory
place?
updates, haven't they?
Yeah, factory updates, that's what I'm thinking about. Yeah, exactly.
Because the chassis is still going to be continuing to be built in Switzerland,
Mm.
and then the engine department. So they've been investing heavily in the engine side recently.
Yes.
That's what they've been doing, because obviously you're allowed to, and you've got a completely separate cost cap for engine development. So which would be Audi. So that would be having no impact on Alfa Romeo as they were, as Sauber as they are, because that engine development is purely for 2026. So they will have a whole setup for that. So I think now we're going to be starting to see that crossover in terms of appointments with, whoever left with the Alfa Romeo partnership, because it was a partnership. It was a technical partnership. It was more than a naming deal. They actually had people involved from Alfa Romeo who have now left. So that's something that's really being missed, I think, from the end of that partnership, that people have just gone, oh, they're no longer called Alfa Romeo. It was actually a technical partnership with Ferrari, with people coming on board. So
and if you want a practical example, even Christian Horner's come out and said it. How many Honda employees have stayed with Red Bull powertrains?
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. It's more than you would think.
It's a lot, because they shut down everything, and that kind of, brings you on to how good Honda are going to be in 2026 for Aston Martin.
The fact they've just come back within like 6 months, they were like, "Yeah, we're leaving," and then come back with it. It's outrageous. They've done it
again. They're going with an American type, aren't they? With the Honda engine, which makes you think that the big mistake is they said they would go in. Red Bull powertrains obviously came in, took a lot of lead, took a lot of Mercedes engineers as well, because the cost cap's kicking in. And suddenly Red Bull powertrains is all singing, all dancing, and gonna be very, I think, very strong, judging by the appointments they've made.
We haven't obviously discussed it, but like I really don't see Red Bull being knocked off the top for a while. It just there's something about it.
The only way I can see it happening is if you genuinely reach the ceiling of development, as in you can't make that Red Bull any faster. Now last season they were faster, and I genuinely think they had more in the bag. I've talked about this quite a lot. I think that they weren't flat out. Max wasn't being challenged much, which makes you think he certainly wasn't driving flat out all the time.
No, probably not.
And I don't think the engine was turned up fully all the time either.
Ash said the same thing.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely performance gains even on last year, but their biggest step forward last year was the weight saving, which obviously they're not going to make this year. So actually, is there going to be an opportunity for teams to come back a bit and sort of close that gap?
Yeah.
And how much of it is Max's driving?
Yeah.
And I keep going back to this. I'm not sure Max is getting the credit he deserves, because is Checo performing at a point where everyone's saying, we've heard it all last year, didn't we? Danny's going to come in.
Yeah.
Checo's performing badly, looking in compared to Max. But actually, is Max just performing that well that Checo is performing at a level that you'd associate with the car in terms of where it is? But Max is just that better driver. He's just in that zone. He's in that groove. He's got that confidence. He's got that invincibility that we saw Lewis have over the years. That he's finding that extra time from just being that. Schumacher eras, we go back to all these great drivers where they had teammates and they literally were just seconds apart from them because they were just that good. And their generational talents, they're once in a lifetime people.
I think that Perez is. I don't think he's doing a good enough job. I will say that, and I've said it before. However, I feel like Perez is maybe performing at, let's say you have 100% performance, which is perfect, which is where Max is at, right? Yeah. But I think that Max's ability gives him 10% over Perez, right? And in Formula One, 1% is a lot of time on the track. And so I think that Perez is maybe performing at 90% of what Verstappen can, right? And the other part of it as well, he's got to be affected psychologically. He has to.
Yeah, definitely.
You look at Bottas as well when he was going up against Lewis, and it's that psychological of like, all your life you've been building towards Formula One. You are the best. I am the best. Nobody can beat me. If you put me in the fastest car with somebody else, I will beat that other person. And then to somehow accept, but not really, that just isn't the case is ridiculous. And I think that's maybe brought him back another 10% as well. So Perez just isn't operating at optimum. And I don't think he's done, even though he won 2 races at the beginning of the season, look at where Max started from during those 2 races where Perez won. Yeah, he didn't put up that much of a fight. And so when you look at Miami was where we were like, okay, this is a bit special. And then he just went on and walked all over the grid the entire time up until Singapore had a bit of a blip, but then carried on anyway. But like, I do think that this is one of those things where we will look back in 10 years and go, geez, he's a different beast.
Yeah,
like, just
phenomenal
is.
talent. Yeah,
just is.
Yeah,
like there's
just
no
a great,
other.
just a great, just literally deserves to be up there with him. And you know, I think that's the problem.
I think
that some people are not seeing because of obviously what happened in 2021 in circumstances.
Yeah,
I don't think I think there's a fan base that maybe aren't appreciating, but I think that happens in Formula One anyway. I think sometimes we don't appreciate these talents until they're no longer on the grid. You know, Fernando, when he first retired,
I agree.
For example, you know,
I think a great example is you've got to remember that Hamilton also won his first championship under some a little bit dodgy conditions. It's a completely different situation. Please don't at me, F1X, I guess, or Twitter or whatever it is. But you get my point. There was controversy with both of their first world championships, right? And Lewis was hated by quite a few at some point, and then slowly but surely was also liked and then disliked, and it ebbed and flowed. And I think exactly the same will happen with Max. And when Lewis retires...
Fernando was the same.
Fernando, exactly. Seb is a perfect example. At Red Bull, he was hated.
Another perfect example.
But now I think you know, Vettel checked himself towards the end, realized maybe he is a bit too cocky. Maybe he is a bit X, Y, Z.
But then they need that, don't they, as well?
Yeah.
When they're young coming into Formula One, they need that to do what they do, to be the driver they are. Yeah. Lewis was a young, arrogant driver. You know, Senna was the same. Schumacher was the same. Yeah. They all carried this. We all remember when Schumacher and Coulthard crashed in I think it was Spa in the rain. And Schumacher's running down the pit lane after Coulthard like it's his fault.
Yeah.
When to be fair, Coulthard was just plumb in the middle of the track and Schumacher drove into the back of him.
No.
But in Schumacher's eyes, and even DC said this on many sort of interviews afterwards. According to Schumacher's eye, what were you doing? And he was adamant that it's DC's fault. And DC's like, I was plumb on the track in the rain. I didn't even see you.
Literally,
but ridiculous. He said the way that Schumacher come at him was like, and never apologised to this day. Never sort of
apparently not. No.
Yeah. So those sort of personalities, isn't it? That's what they are, and it's probably that what separates them. And Bottas talks about that mental, like you said earlier, that mental sort of 5 years at Mercedes, how mentally draining it was to actually go up against Lewis and every season think this is my year.
Yeah.
And then by the midway point being told to put aside because Lewis is clearing the championship, and actually you're now playing team game. Yeah. Because that's what we paid you to do ultimately. So
I think it further just goes to show how bloody good that one season from Nico Rosberg was. That's my first point. My second point is no matter how much more Max does, unless he does something absolutely horrific, like joins Haas for 3 years and just comes around on the back for no reason, he will be in the same conversation as Hamilton, as Senna, as Prost,
definitely,
as all of the greats. He is already in that conversation.
Yeah, he's got to be after last season, that record breaking season. He's got to be now in that sort of conversation. It's a debate, is it? What do we class as great? So I keep saying you can't compare generational talents. No. The circumstances are different, but you can appreciate that every generation has these superstars and these drivers that will always stay with you, and you'll sort of look back on years and go, actually, I remember watching that, that era. I remember watching that Verstappen record breaking season. Actually, they, like you say, people will be talking about in years come, won't they?
Yeah, easily. Yeah,
I remember that. I was there. I watched that.
Yeah, I think that it's, for me, there are I have best of generational / technical directions type thing. So that if you had taken, for example, Senna with his driving style in these newer Formula One cars, it wouldn't work as well as it did in the technical regulations that he had of his day. Could he adapt? Maybe. Who knows? But the point still stands is that at that time, up until his untimely death, he was a force to be reckoned with. There's no other way of putting it. He is and will forever be one of the best. And you could say exactly the same for Verstappen. If you took Verstappen and put him in the MP4, MP4-4, sorry, I do apologize. But if you drag and dropped him into that car, his driving style may not work as well. So I think that with each reasonably big technical direction change, there is a best of era type thing. It's almost like a 80s hits, 90s hits. 2000 hits. That's what it is. And so we will, at the end of time, we will have a crop of incredible drivers whose names will stand the test of time, and Verstappen's is on that list. There's no other way of putting it. Yeah.
No, definitely. And like I say, I think it all depends on the era you grew up in as well, what you remember, where you were influenced on that as well. So I think all of these things play a huge part into, sort of where you place these people or rank them. And I think it's one of these, you'll never answer the debates, and I don't think you can, because you go on statistics with with Lewis, you go on sheer driving ability, where does Michael fit into it? And I hate that phrase, it's about the car, it's about the car. The car plays a massive part, but also the driver plays a massive part. And but you always have to have the two, like you say, you don't see a world champion going into a bad car. Damon Hill at Arrows is a prime example of, when you can take that number one and you can go and not make it work. So you've got to.
Yeah, these good drivers drag bad cars out of the mud. As well. So there's also that as well. Like, good drivers don't, great drivers do. I think that's probably the differential to make. Like only the greats will be able to do stuff like what Schumacher did with Ferrari. I am aware that it is now 9:10 for you, so I don't.
No, we carry on. We're fighting.
Oh, perfect. Well, in that case, then so this is just going completely off order. We had topic for those listening. If you've made it 51 minutes in, 52 now, congrats. But we're just going to waffle on now for a bit. But so in terms of like generational talents and stuff like that. We had obviously the crop of rookies who came through. So we had Russell and Norris and Albon. Sorry, I couldn't remember Albon's name. I do apologize, Alex. Love you. But so we had those crop come through, and they've gone ahead and done pretty well. Let's be honest, pretty well.
Yeah.
Only one race win between the three of them, but but I actually had a question about another younger driver. In terms of, because we've not had the chance to talk about it, us two, Oscar Piastri. What did you think of his season? Because it's being compared to Lewis Hamilton's rookie season, which I think is wrong, but he does technically have the best rookie season since Lewis Hamilton. That can't go unnoticed.
I think it's, first of all, I'm with you on agreement. I think it's wrong to compare him to Lewis's rookie season. I think the team is in a completely different phase to what that McLaren team was under the car. Obviously, McLaren had. We won't go into the circumstances of Spygate. If that's
fine.
We were going to take off the air for that.
Spygate, kids.
Spygate isn't a Sky movie for the new Formula One fans. Go Google it with Formula One, and you'll find Alonso stuffed envelopes and McLaren mechanic stories.
Ridiculous, yeah.
But I think Oscar Piastri had a great season. I called it at the start of the season that I thought he might perform better than Lando.
Yes.
And I think that during the season he was unlucky in some races, and I also think he was unlucky in terms of McLaren development, because I think the one thing we got to keep remembering is that Oscar didn't have the same car all the time as Lando. Silverstone was a prime example, and he was behind sometimes sort of 2-3 races.
Well,
There's a couple of occasions where actually he had the older spec car to what Lando had, and still performed, reasonably well stacked up against him. So, I've said Oscar's winner at every level. You can see why McLaren went and signed him up. You can see why they tied him down to a long-term deal as well. Zach Brown, for a lot of, we talk about characters. Zach Brown's one. He's really turned McLaren's fortunes around, and actually, that is a strong partnership as long as it doesn't go Rosberg Hamilton style.
Yes, yeah, I think
and that's the danger. You've got two number one drivers here who are both capable of being number one drivers.
Yeah.
Lando, I think it's going to be, the dynamics going to be interesting. If Oscar snatches a win before Lando, I really feel there could be a turning point in the McLaren garage. For sure.
I have a very similar opinion. I think that Oscar, by winning a sprint race during such a dominant season as well with Verstappen, has proven he's there. He very clearly, maybe not the consistency, but he's there in and about in terms of skill and being able to deliver. Maybe not consistently, but also he didn't have the same car. Like, I mean, in Spa, he got slammed into the wall by Carlos Sainz during the race within like 2 or 3 corners. And he was leading that sprint race at that point as well, when that McLaren was not set up for that track. It was set up for the rain, and then on race day, it didn't rain. So it was
completely terrible.
So like, and also, can you imagine if they had, like, Oscar and Lando had both had similar enough cars from Bahrain onwards, like from the beginning of the season? Oscar would have had an even better season. And I completely agree that, and I think that this year is particularly important for Lando. I think that if Red Bull continue to dominate the season, say, for example, Red Bull win out of the 24 races, let's say they win 18, 19, right? That's ridiculously dominant. Yeah. And you start to see 3 or 4 different constructors win races. If Lando isn't one of those names, I do kind of think that questions might start being asked of whether or not Lando is as good as everyone says he is. I think he's bloody fantastic, but surely, especially if Oscar wins before Lando, wins a proper race, and especially if and when Oscar wins 2 races before Lando, questions will really, really start being asked. So it's a dangerous game to play, but I think that Zach has got them right where he wants them. They're going to push each other. They're going to be competitive. They're going to want to beat the other, especially now that this isn't Oscar's rookie season going into 2024. There's a reason for Oscar to, like, right, I'm no longer the new kid on the block. I've actually raced some of these tracks now. I actually have the same car as Lando now.
Yeah.
There's no what reason do I have now?
I've beaten Lando in terms of the sprint.
Exactly. So I have one up on him. So if you're Oscar Piastri, you haven't got your feet up, but you're looking at this season like there's something on the table here. Whereas I feel like Lando, especially based on, like, Lando gives it all or nothing. And I think he has a very similar approach to Charles in terms of qualifying. You saw his qualifying at Abu Dhabi. He could have put that on pole. As far as I'm concerned, Lando was on par to put that on pole or be very, very close to on pole. But he just stepped up too much in that third sector on his last flying lap. And again, similar to Charles, because Charles gives it everything on those qualifying laps. And Lando did the exact same. And that's what you're supposed to do as a Formula One driver. But he also made a mistake in Mexico, and he also made a mistake in this bit and stuff like that. And so I think that he also needs to have some sort of level of consistency, because he can't keep making those mistakes, especially if Oscar isn't making them.
Yeah,
that's when the problems are going to start. What do you think? Do you think that sounds about right? Or
I mean,
some other things at play, or
for me with Lando, I still haven't seen enough for me to say that he's a class above, like, the other drivers, like I say, that came up with him, the Georges, the Alexes.
Lando is a race winner. He's a race winner, but I don't know if he's a world champion.
No, and I think by Zach tying him into his long-term McLaren deal, it kind of inflated his value almost falsely in the eyes of the public, by McLaren sort of going, this is our driver, we're sticking by him. And then, of course, there was the season with Danny Ricciardo, obviously, as well, where, he obviously, performed massively better than Danny. who is a multiple race winner. So that kind of increases, first and foremost, beat your teammate, like say, and that increases your stock value as well, doesn't it? So I think there's the element of that year as well. A bit like George, I'd say, with Lewis.
Yeah.
I don't think George, for me, has enough as a driver. I think he had a really poor season last season. I still think that his 2022 season, the only reason he beat Lewis because Lewis was suffering from a 2021 Abu Dhabi hangover. I think from the outside we were looking in, I think that he was questioning whether or not he wanted to stay in the sport, whether or not he wanted to still be there. The car was clearly uncompetitive, so I think he was doing a lot of soul searching, as in, do I really want to stay here and do this after everything I won?
Yeah, he also lost Angela halfway through that season as well. And so meaning he lost somebody very close to him in terms of support group and all that fun stuff. But also he was doing a lot because he was so desperate to be back at the front of the field again. He was doing
testing,
a lot of
tweaking,
and being like, right, okay, I'm more than happy to run a slightly compromised package so that we can get some learnings, because I know we're not going to finish 5th, 3rd, whatever. We're going to finish 10th. So let me just take some data. Like, that's fine. So it was a very odd situation.
And I think that inflated George's, even George's ego, I'd say, to some extent.
Yeah, and especially winning a race.
Yeah, and then winning a race as well. So I think that's had a part as well. So I think that Lewis last season firmly put him in check, as if to say, I'm the number one Mercedes driver, and until I'm not here, George, and even Toto said recently that he's going to have to come out and, he said, I'm going to have to sit down with George over the winter and chat to him about, what happened last year, where we go forward. So even Toto is recognising that as well. So I do think that maybe that's happened a bit with Lando as well. And now you've got, like you say, you've also got Oscar, who's just got nothing to lose. No. The things I love about seeing the rookies is they put it all out there, don't they? They're like, I'm in this. I'm going to take my opportunity and I'm going to, grab it with both hands and I'm going to give it everything.
Run with it,
and just run with it. And like I say, didn't know the tracks, didn't know the team, had, I'll say, quite limited testing when you think about it, because actually, his problems, his contracts are with Alpine, stopped him from doing a lot of testing.
F1 teams used to have so much testing for young drivers. It is insane. Now it's like non-existent.
I mean, the only good thing now is that from this year, you'll be allowed to run the new spec, because you're allowed, like, a couple of years old. So you'll be able to run the 2022 cars now in testing. So that's going to give, the young drivers the experience of at least the modern day regulations, the current regulations. So even though it's going to be a couple of years out of date, at least you'll be getting a feel of what the new cars are like. But to think, we've got this whole raft of drivers driving, and we bring these drivers through and we give them 1 or 2 FP1 sessions, and then we go, not very good, are they?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder why.
Because they can't test. And I get the rules on testing, I get why we do it, and I get that the data the teams gather and everything else. But ultimately, if we want these rookies to come through, we've got to find a way to develop them as well. And F2 needs to play a bigger part in that, in terms of, we got people like Terry Porcher now, Felipe Drugovich, won championships, can't race in F2, can't race a modern day F1 car. They're just sat in garages every weekend waiting for an FP1 session to pass on me and do the sim work.
Yeah, literally.
And that's literally doing meet and greets and making TikToks.
I think we posted a meme on the 107 account, and I just put something up of like, great, you've won F2. Now you either wear a team T-shirt behind the like in the garage, or move to Japan and do Super Formula. Those are your options.
Super Formula,
or make TikToks.
Make TikToks or sat next to the team principal for regular Sky, F1. Wave on it, something of your name coming up.
It's
just crazy. It's just crazy to think.
But again, further goes to, there should be 12 teams with 24 cars on the grid. It's not that difficult as far as
I sometimes get on my page quite a lot, because I like to do news. People think that when I report that, Formula One management don't want Andretti, that's my view. It's not at all. I want more teams, more drivers. I'm a racer. I've followed this sport for so many years now. I want more teams, more competition, more drivers, more racing. That's what I want. Wheel to wheel racing. So when we hear the penalties and people go, it shouldn't have been a penalty. It's like, well, it should be a penalty because that's what they've decided. But it should never have been a penalty, as in, before the start of the season, you should let that go. It's just a racing incident. But when you set that precedent, you've got to follow it all the way through. I understand why the FIA do that, but actually, it should never be a penalty, and they're two very different things, aren't they? But, it's the feeder series and, are we going to get another state of rookies like that group you talked about? Because we're not creating the opportunities for them. There's not. Where do they go? They ended like a Mick Schumacher, which, with Haas, everyone ridiculed, everyone sort of, said it was right decision to get rid of him. Was it? Because actually, Haas's performance since Mick Schumacher went have told me that, they haven't done much better since he went.
No.
At least we would have the commerciality of the Schumacher name.
And he was in a dog of a car as well.
Yeah, first season, they openly said that we're not developing.
Yeah, we're not developing.
We're not doing anything for it.
We're
ready
essentially,
for
they essentially ran an F2 car with F1 cars. That's essentially what it is.
And actually, again, is that a fair assessment of Mick's talents? Whether or not, rightly or wrongly, you agree with he should be in for one. He certainly deserves an opportunity with a team who gives him more than the dog of a car.
I think that Mick's opportunity was not great. And I think that if he has another opportunity, that would be fair. Not giving him another opportunity at some point would be unfair. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, exactly.
You're not, you're not F2 champion and stuff like that because you're rubbish. Like you've got to have something about you.
Yeah.
So I mean, like Oscar Piastri is a great example. Going back slightly, because I mean, he wasn't particularly good in the dog of a car. You give him a slightly competitive car, he wins a sprint race. It's a different situation, but you get my point.
But no, beginning of the season, you would have just gone, Oscar's rookie years. If it carried on like Bahrain start of the season, you would have gone, this is a disaster. But actually, like you say, he suddenly had that good car and he had that platform to perform on.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Ultimately, the car's like a stage, isn't it? You have to give him the stage to perform on. And Oscar's took that. And I genuinely think, like I say, I do think McLaren have got a strong pairing. I think in terms of driver pairings, I think with two drivers, they've got to be one of the strongest if they can keep out of that tinderbox of, teammates blowing up with each other. I think Mercedes, another team with strong pairing. I think Checo might be... I think Checo's got to the summer, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And I think if the teams are on McLaren and on Red Bull's heels, like McLaren and following them and catching up with them, I think then we might see Christian take a different stance with Checo if they're losing points, and if they're being caught.
I think especially because like if McLaren's improvements are not exponential, but if they're like at a steady level, by the beginning of the 25 season, McLaren are going to be ahead. So I mean, potentially, I don't know. Well, I won't count my chickens before they hatch, but that's potentially something that could, and I hope to God it happens. But. I'm not biased at all. But so I think that also it must be frustrating for all of the drivers as well. Like we talked about, George won a race a couple of years ago. Sainz won a race last year as well.
Last year.
And the year before, to be fair. But like it must also be incredibly frustrating to be a Formula One driver right now with Max Verstappen on the grid because he just keeps bloody winning. If Max didn't exist, or if you'd have had maybe a slightly less dominant season, we would have had so many different winners.
Yeah,
because behind that
the gap isn't that big. I mean, if you and it sounds ridiculous to say if you take Max out, what a ridiculous thing to say.
Yeah,
but
hypothetically,
ultimately, if you do take Max and his car out, then actually the rest of the pack all through the season is actually probably the closest pack we've had.
Yeah. For a while,
in years, in terms of the rest of the grid,
the regulations have worked. The problem is that Adrian Newey is an absolute freak.
Well, the regulations work. For me, I've got two hang-ups with the regulations. The regulations works. What's happened though is the cost cap hasn't.
Yes,
because what we've now got is we've got a situation where the regulations were we've created closer racing, which is exactly what we wanted the regulations to do. What's happened is when one team nails that regulations, like Red Bull, the other teams haven't now got the financial capacity to spend their way to catch up.
Yeah.
So what you're now getting is this scenario where in the past, you would have had the likes of Aston Martin, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren even, spending lots of money on lots of different development routes to find out which one they need to go down to.
Yeah.
We've now got this problem that Mercedes did with the zero tripods. McLaren had problems with their floor, where if you go down the wrong development route, because of the cost cap, it takes you so long to back engineer your way out of that and then go down another route that you've lost so much time. You've lost so much time in terms of Formula One, and that's where the cost cap doesn't work for me. That's where it's really, really bad in terms of what it could have done, because actually we've got these regulations where it's close, and end of 2021 proved that the cars were close at the end of 21 when those regulations finished. That's why we had that season with Max and Lewis ultimately, because
you could barely separate them.
You couldn't separate. And in fact, all the way through the grid, there was a lot of battles in there going down to the final race over who was finishing where. So, the regulations brought them closer.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, Max probably should have had the championship wrapped up a little bit earlier than Abu Dhabi, in complete honesty. I mean, if you look at Baku and Lewis almost killing him at Silverstone, I think he probably would have done a bit better had those two situations not happened. But it still made it very close and very interesting.
But the thing is, you Mercedes fans will come back with, we changed the regulation in 2021 to suit high rate cars for no reason, And then there's been a lot of talk of why aren't the FIA stepping in now on Red Bull regulations. But ultimately, you're talking 8 years of dominance compared to
a year and a half
potentially, because they didn't win the constructors in 2021 and Mercedes did. So
also the difference is that Checo isn't finishing every race P2 like Bottas was.
No, and also we know we've got new regs over the corner. We know it's correct. We know that we're only 2 years away from it. So actually, I sometimes the FIA's biggest critic, but on this occasion, I completely understand that. Unless it's a safety reason, we don't need to change it. Unless something happens where there's a genuine risk to a driver, like what we saw in Qatar in terms of the tyres. So unless there's something like that that's happening, there's a genuine health and safety risk. We don't need to mess with the regulations. Because that would allow teams to also get closer, like we just discussed. Because actually, if you've got the regulations, you will hit that ceiling of development. And the other teams, I think we're now seeing the teams that understand the regulations. I think Red Bull understood a lot more because of Adrian Newey and what his thesis was on and his experience in that department. So I think that's what gave them this platform to hit the ground running. I think what we're now seeing is the other teams who are full of these, equally talented individuals who are now at a point where they now understand the car, they now understand what the ground effect is, they understand how everything goes together. And we've seen these gains of teams coming about, these big leaps of Aston Martin, Mercedes. To me, that's a surefire way of teams getting to grips with the new regulations. And with nearly 2 years still to go on it, actually, I'm not as disheartened as some might be about Red Bull's domination. I think there's, I think that Red Bull switched their development early for 2026.
Yeah, they did.
We've heard that. We've heard that they've already got the RB21 all ready to be sewn up by the end of this year. That sort of thing. So they're ready to go on what will be the RB22, so that come 1st of January they can concentrate purely on 2026 regulations. So, but that might catch them out, because if you've gone down the wrong route, or again, what if they try something radical? What if they try a zeros iPod? And it goes wrong.
What if they? It sounds stupid, and it is a stupid idea, but maybe the key to unlocking this is double side pods. Again, I know it's a completely stupid idea, but I mean, maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe Alpine come out of nowhere with this double side pods idea, and they have the 2025 to remember, and they win every single race, and Pierre Gasly is driver's champion. You just don't know, because Red Bull sat on their hands and went, well, the 26 car's ready.
Or car was that good last season, that dominant with
we'll be fine.
And that's the danger, isn't it? That do you twist or stick, isn't it? It's the ultimate in Formula One.
Don't count your chickens before they hatch.
Absolutely. But all the same, is it? And for me, if you look at the gains that Aston Martin made, and then you look at the mid-season McLaren gains, there's nothing to say the other teams can't make that gain. Because two teams have now done it. So it wasn't a one-off, because two teams have done it. So ultimately, you've got a situation where Mercedes can make that gain, Alpine can make that gain, Ferrari can make that gain, and suddenly...
I know they say every year it's our year. Well, apparently the sim pace from Ferrari allegedly has been very good and all this stuff. But I mean, it's always a classic Ferrari.
You know what? I hate off season, because we can sit here and we can. I can tell you now the stories that are coming out. There'll be someone who's unlocked 30 brake horsepower in their engines because of the development route. Bear in mind, we're in the engine freeze for like year 4. But somehow, I think that's what Mercedes can now turn their engines up Brilliant. Because they would have developed rules where they couldn't run their engines at full, obviously.
Yeah.
Sim pace is always a good one. The sim data is brilliant. Mercedes sim data was brilliant until they went on track and porpoised everywhere.
Yeah,
So
exactly,
that's not. But you will, won't you? All through the winter we hear about it. Last year was Alpine was there. Alpine were massively underweight, and they were ready to make that step forward. The only rumor last year that came out to be true was Aston Martin.
Yeah.
To be honest, was the big gains that Aston Martin were making over the winter, and there was a lot of talk about that, and people were going, really? Yeah, this was a...
And then they turned up at testing and...
testing was like, wow, they have,
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
We were right on that one.
Yeah, they had a big jump. And I think that realistically, the only big thing, like, again, this is potentially me being a teeny tiny bit biased, but also taking actual facts into consideration. I think that the wind tunnel, McLaren having their own wind tunnel, will benefit them massively, but we won't see that for at least 6 months because they haven't developed this year's or the 24 car in that wind tunnel. But they will probably develop upgrades in that wind tunnel more than likely. But other than that, maybe some of the upgrades, factory upgrades, Sauber and stuff like that may kick in at some point. See what I did there? But so they may completely accidental. I called myself doing it. But like there might be a couple of things, but there's nothing outrageous that I'm like, oh, because Ferrari have signed Paul di Resta as their reserve driver, that means they're going to do absolutely amazingly. There's nothing that I'm like, oh yeah, other than that wind tunnel. That's the only thing that I'm like, that could be a contributing factor.
There's a W15 sneaking about there.
Yeah. Well, you said brand new, Return of the King type thing.
It's hard, is it? Do we get exposed about? I've said this before. Do we get exposed about Mercedes and James Allison returning? Or there's a lot of talk coming out of Mercedes at the moment. There's the team are certainly happier, and that's a fact. That is a fact. The team at Brackley are certainly happier with the direction that James has provided since he's come back.
Yes, yeah.
And just the way the team's running is a lot better in terms of development. So that bodes well.
I'll be honest, I'd mostly forgotten he was back.
But it's. I mean, we sat here and thought the W14 would come out and be this all-conquering car, and it wasn't. So I think there's a pinch of salt that me personally I'm taking, but I wonder if the way that they can develop a car now that they understand the car, you don't go from being 8 in a row constructor champions to being bad champions overnight. That's the reality. Yes, they've lost a lot of good people. I'm sure people will quote that.
Yeah.
And yes, there's been changes, but ultimately there's a lot in that team who used to winning championships, who used to building championship winning cars, and
success breeds success.
Yeah.
It's got to come at some point.
It has. And we all know that dominations in Formula One, they always end. And it's Formula One's always had domination. It's a case of how long that domination lasts. Well, Braun had it for a season. Halfway through the season, as soon as that court case came out, as soon as the court case came out, and the FIA said no, it's legal. Suddenly, everyone's like, oh, we heard in that documentary, Adrian Newey drawing on the back of effectively in the old days fag packets, wasn't it? Of a double diffuser, ready to launch, not even attending races to get that up and running. So everyone has these period of dominations. It's just a case of Ferrari had it, Williams had it, McLaren had it before. It's always been in Formula One. It's a case of how long it lasts for, and when the other teams can catch up, because invariably they always do. No matter whether it's
10,
it always happens. So I think it'll be exciting to see. I think Ferrari, dark horse. There's another one there for you. So,
nice,
Ferrari. But if they can get that one lap, Fred Vasseurs made huge backroom signings there. Massive amount of turnover at Maranello, and that's got to start coming to fruition at some point.
That's the thing. Like he's definitely
made massive. Literally, there's a lot that's happened behind the scenes there. You're talking the staff turnover at some of the other teams. Ferrari's been, pretty much handing out garden leave, boosting people out of left, right, centre for the past 12 months under Fred.
So let's hope it pays off.
Yeah, if you can get that, if you can convert that 1 lap pace they've clearly got into a race pace that controls the tyres and actually lets the strategists win. I mean, Ferrari strategists, they're the butt of everybody's memes, aren't they? They're there. But ultimately, if you've got a car that burns its tyres up after 5-6 laps, your strategy department is shot to pieces anyway because they can't do nothing. They're literally sat there. They're like, "What do we do?" And that's why you keep hearing Plan B, Plan C. It's not actually that they're a bad strategy team. Far from it. They're just like, "What do we do?" Because we should be doing 30 laps on these tyres, yet 10, and we've dropped off already, and the pace is gone. Yeah. Do I do a 10 stop? And
it's
I have nothing for this. I can't work with You can't work with these.
It's a big problem. It is essentially like asking Gordon Ramsay to create the best meal he's ever done with rice cakes and baked beans. There's only so much you can do
with an I'm Celebrity menu, isn't it?
What can you do?
You've got rice and beans and create me a gourmet meal.
Yeah, exactly. You
could be the best chef in the world. It's not going to happen, is it? So.
No, exactly. But like the changes that have happened, let's wait and see, because I think towards the end of the year we saw the Ferrari evolved, but that is also partly because Red Bull stopped bothering to develop their car. So there is also that. So I think that we will probably see Red Bull take the lead again at the beginning of the year, but I'd imagine 4 or 5 races in, there might be a little bit of catch up. That's my prediction anyway for the beginning of next year.
It's normally when it comes back to Europe, isn't it? We normally get that. The first sort of races where they've packed the flyaway stuff, it's gone out there. It's gone out there early. And they can't, it costs too much to get the new parts. Normally around Baku, isn't it, is when it starts we tend to see the first big upgrades from teams.
Yeah, because
obviously slightly different kind of issue with Japan, isn't it? And
yes,
the way it's done because of I want to say Ramadan, isn't it? That's why we're having
Ramadan. Yes,
we were having Saturday night races and all sorts of weird and wonderful starts to the season, aren't we? So
kind of looking forward to it. I think it's nice. I'm looking forward to it.
It's good to be excited. It'd be interesting to see Japan at the start of the season. And
love that.
The ones at the back end of the season as well. So it'd be good to see. But I do think development-wise, I think you're right. I think, I mean, we never know. We don't even know from testing until we get. I always say Q3 is the time. Q3 in Bahrain. That's when we know what the team's done. When they put those soft tires on and turn the engines up full for the first time, probably, and run them on low fuel, that's when you start to learn who's got it right and who's got it wrong. I think till then it's all guesswork. Even tested with different run programs. People don't understand that when we go testing, teams have a set program that they want to run through. And they're not worried about what the garage next to them doing. They've got this set program of want to test these parts, do this, do that, and day 1 we're going to do this, day 2 we're going to do this, and so on. So we're going to run our engines or whatever because we know if we run them at full, we can add a second in, or we don't need to run that. So
especially with quite a few components from last season carried over as well.
And we know the track. We've been to Bahrain a few years now. We know what the do. We know we can read the data. They know that you can sandbag if you want to.
Yeah, you can.
That's my warning to people listening is expect some sandbags in the Bahrainian desert for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been recording now for almost an hour and a half, which is quite a lot. So I think we should probably call it about there. But I'm gonna leave you one final question because we've been talking about preseason testing and whether the new calendar is going to go. For you, where should the opening race be?
Australia.
Yeah, that is the only correct answer. Thank you very much for listening to the one. No, I'm kidding. That is the only correct answer. It's Australia. Deal with it. I love Bahrain. It's not the season opener. There's something different in the air about having the season opener in Australia. I don't know what it is.
It's a great Grand Prix as well. It's a great track. Yeah. It's a great atmosphere. It's just a whole vibe, isn't it? When you just look at the build-up that goes with it, they know how to put on a race there. Yeah, it's one of those tracks which you just go, actually, it's a proper bucket list track to go visit, isn't it? So,
I know that they were talking about making that a night race at one point as well, or potentially making it a night race as well. I don't really care. I think, not bothered.
Might save again, they put 5 a.m. or whatever it is.
Yeah, but I mean, then again, there's also something. If it's the first race of the season, you're excited. You want to get up at 5 a.m.
You'd be up anyway. Yeah, you'd be up anyway. I do miss that. It's a bit like I miss Barcelona testing as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do feel like they did it one year, didn't they, where they had closed testing in Barcelona and then public
Yeah.
testing in Bahrain. They could
Yeah.
easily do that again. I don't know. I'm not in charge of it
I
all,
think it's
so
length
what
of
do I
the
say?
calendar, isn't it? I think it's all to do with how much time they're on the road for, and
True. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
if
a
you add
lot.
in another test, then you got to bring everything
Yeah.
forward a bit, haven't you? So
Yeah, it's another
yeah,
week less of like family time for all of the
yeah,
employees and all
definitely.
that fun stuff. So I lied. I have one more question for you. Have you booked any tickets for Grand Prix next year yet, or are you still waiting?
Silverstone, no, Silverstone I'm booked for.
Nice. Yes.
So I am booked for Silverstone. I've not got anything else. I've got my eye on a couple. I'm
Okay.
not gonna lie.
Nice. Yeah. Nice.
I don't know if they're gonna pan out yet.
Fair enough. Yeah. That happens.
But yeah, so Dad's got a couple of bucket list
Right.
races as well,
Yeah.
which I'm trying to find a way. But like anyone, I'm sure everyone, they're extortionate prices. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
They are expensive. Formula One tickets have got on the ridiculous side to some degree. I mean, there are still some good ones to have, but
True.
when you start adding in flights, hotels, that side of thing, that's when it gets. I would say I'm quite lucky. I think I said to you, I'm so close to Silverstone, I can travel down. I don't need accommodation.
No.
I could be back home in a couple hours.
Yeah.
So for me, Silverstone's perfect.
Yeah. Although you might spend, again, I'm pulling a number out of my ass, but if you were to spend £500 on a ticket, which is probably quite cheap at this point, if you were to spend that, that's like half what I paid. But yeah, if you were to spend £500 on a ticket compared to flying to even the cheapest Grand Prix,
exactly,
Budapest, which is I'm going to Budapest this year, which should be awesome. Wow. Never been before, should be great.
No, it looks great.
General admission, by the way, I haven't got a seat. And I'll be going with the missus as well, so like it's her first experience at a race. So that should be a lot of fun. But if you were to add flights, accommodation, and the ticket, it's almost the exact same price anyway. So you might as well just go to Silverstone. It's down the road.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I mean, we obviously did Silverstone last year. We did a launch party, which was quite a good experience.
Yeah.
That was my first ever Grand Prix experience. So the whole weekend was quite good. We obviously did launch party on the Thursday, which was okay. I'd say it was great to walk around, see what was there in terms of the stalls, the fan zones, all those bits. Then obviously watch concert. That was okay.
Yeah.
We didn't do the Friday, but we went hospitality on Saturday.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Which I was very lucky that my dad brought as a last minute deal because he wanted to go, and that was the only ticket left. Yeah. And that was great. And to be honest, the Saturday price of that was quite reasonable. Like I say, if you take out the fact that what people paid for a campsite, for example, we probably didn't pay as much as that because we didn't have that to worry about. So I was talking to a couple of people who paid like general admission. They went down on the Thursday, booked a campsite, all the food, all drink. By the time you add all that in, you're probably not that far off if you're like being lucky enough to be to travel down to there.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what we did. We literally did Silverstone on Saturday. We then had all our food and copious amounts of Heineken 0.0%, I must add. Far too much for me. Dad obviously didn't.
Oh, well, yeah.
But then drove back and then did same Aussie race day where we did the grandstand for that. So from that point of view, actually, we experienced a lot of different parts of Silverstone in terms of hospitality, government admission.
And you went to the paddock as well.
We kind of went to the paddock. Lucky enough, I didn't pay for that though. I must add, I didn't buy paddock passes, so that was very fortunate. But that's what I mean. From the amount of money you probably save by not having the accommodation, the food, and stuff while you're there, actually works out better for us. But like I say, you can't do that with a Grand Prix that's abroad. So you then have to look all different bits. So
true,
we shall see.
Yes, but I may not speak to you about it again before you book it. But best of luck booking it all. If I were to recommend one, Ash and I went to Austria. That was a lot of fun. A lot of orange smoke, but a lot of fun, and the tickets weren't that expensive. So there's also that.
That's what I mean. There's a couple where I'm thinking actually, you know.
But do you know what we need? A bloody Germany race. We need a Germany race. Like,
absolutely.
Come on, lads.
Yeah.
You've got, I understand we want, investment from Middle East and blah, 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 blah. Germany.
But come on.
Stick a race to Germany. How difficult is it? Anyway.
Anyway,
yes, we're going to call
people
it
are wondering what on earth this podcast is about.
Yeah, this has been an hour and a half of mostly gibberish, but it's been fun. So thank you very much for joining me, Terry. It's much appreciated as per usual. Whenever you join.
Apologies for not keeping to any script. I mean, at least the listeners know that we don't work off scripts here, and certainly not.
If you assume that there's any level of organization with these podcasts, you'd be deeply wrong. Completely wrong, honestly. I literally messaged Terry. This is for the listeners. I literally messaged Terry about 2 hours before and went, "You fancy it?" And he's gone, "Yeah, go on then." After 7 o'clock, you might. That's fine. Yeah. But yes. So if you've made it an hour and a half, congrats, because that's a long time. But please do make sure, go and check Terry out. And if you're not following the 107 podcast itself as well, please be sure to follow it on your preferred podcast platform. And give us a follow on Instagram. We're now on Threads because it's now available in the EU. Yay. And all that fun stuff. But thank you very much for listening. It's been a good one. Ash will be back next week, apparently. The skiving off work to go and do his actual job. How could he? But thank you again very much for joining us, Terry. Much appreciated. Always a pleasure to have you on, and it's a little bit annoying that Ash isn't also here to join in the conversation. So we'll have to get the three of us back together again at some point soon. Maybe we could do something around car launches and all that fun stuff. Maybe before testing.
Definitely.
We need to set up the bingo. That's what we need to do.
We should do
bingo.
We'll do the F1 Coffee Corner 107 podcast bingo card.
Yes, we'll see. We'll get that sorted. That could be our next thing.
Let's get on it there.
Yeah, but. Thank you for everyone for listening. It's been an absolute pleasure having Terry, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to it too. And we will be back next week. Cheers, everyone.